Okay, great. Anyway. Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy, sometimes Mouse, and I talk about books and book-related things. And today, because it is October, I am giving you my top 10 horror books of all time. I'm pretty sure I do this video basically every year, or something similar every year, but I love horror. It is my favorite genre to read, and I'm gonna take these off, sorry. I love horror. It is my favorite genre to read, and I read new horror every year that changes this list up a little bit. Some things might be repeated from previous years, some things may not be. If you watched my top 10 books of all time, some of these books are on that list as well. Again, horror is my favorite genre, both in movies and books, just in media in general. I love horror. I do. It's true. I have very strong opinions about it as well, so. These books are in no particular order, and I do not own all of them, so I will be going through the ones that I own first, and then the ones that I don't own I will put up on the screen here so that you can see them, see the covers of them, etc. Alright, let's go ahead and get into my top 10 horror books of all time. Okay, starting off strong, we have Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This is originally the author of Perks of Being a Wallflower. If you were a teenager in the 2010s, then you probably know that book, or the movie, either or. However, this book is horrifying. This book is about Kate Reese and her son Christopher, most specifically about Christopher. They move to this town and Christopher is suddenly hearing this kind of voice. He goes into the woods and disappears for about 3 days. When he comes back, he suddenly has these powers to just know things. The voice is telling him to build a tree house, and it has to be built by Christmas time. This book sounds not very frightening, and yet it is very frightening. It is a very long book. Part of that is because of the things that are done with the text formatting to increase the stress of it, I would imagine. But it is overall one of the more terrifying books I've read. I read it more recently because I hadn't read it since I read it the first time. And yeah, it's still fucking horrifying. You get like halfway through and you're like, hey bestie, why am I still so stressed out? And why does it feels like we should be reaching a conclusion here, but there's like 300 more pages left. So like, what's going on? Oh, it's very stressful, but I cannot emphasize enough how much I love this book. I cannot speak to the audiobook because I've never read it, or listened to it rather, so do that at your own will, but for visually, it's fantastic. Next we have Things Have Gotten Worse. Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. This has other stories in it, but Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke specifically is the one I'm talking about here. This is a short story. It is not very long, and it is through the form of articles and emails and messages sent back and forth between two women who are two queer women. This is lots of body horror, so I'm going to give that disclaimer. Please read any trigger warnings, etc. that may be posted online. I am not the one to be good at giving those because I don't have the best memory of things that may or may not be triggering content, since it doesn't trigger me. So here we are. But in this book, the couple, you know that one of them is dead, but you don't know how that came about. You eventually find out, and things are gory and gruesome. There are bugs involved. There are apple peelers involved. This story is where I got the phrase, "What have you done today to deserve your eyes?" which sounds horrifying and is not even the horrifying part of this book. That's what's wild about it. I guess if you are a body horror reader, I recommend this book. This book took the place, so if someone tells me I love horror, give me horror recommendations, first I ask them if they can handle body horror. Like, what kind of horror are you looking for? Are you looking to just be a little bit squicked out? Are you looking to be just like intensely horrified? Are you looking to be grossed out by like gore? What are you looking for? If they want body horror, I used to ask them about one book, which I'm about to talk about, but now I ask them, read this book first, tell me how you feel about it, and then then I can gauge like how horrible we can go, right? Because I've read worse body horror than this, but I've read less gory body horror than this. This is the book that I used to use for that, which is Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. The concept or plot around this book is that all animals are dead. However, we did not stop consuming meat. We instead started making humans that are raised as farm animals, and we eat them. This book specifically follows Marcos, who works at the local processing plant. His wife has left him. There seems to be some internal turmoil. It seems like he almost isn't, like he really struggles in this new world. And then the ending is just like, what the fuck, bro? So already, like, I think just saying that humans become what people start eating is really, they start, and not just eating. You have to remember that we use animals for so many different products, for milk, for leather, for paper, I think.
This just made me laugh so hard. I meant glue. I was talking about glue, not paper. Glue used to be made out of collagen from horses. Okay, thanks.
Not paper. But we use them for so many different products. And so imagine a world where there are no more animals, and so we replace the animals with humans for those needs. Yeah. Moving on. That's disgusting. I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, huh. Alright, next we have Mr. Magic by Kiersten White. This was on my top 10 books of all time. This book haunts me to this day. I haven't read it again because it haunts me to this day. This book is about a TV show that everyone seems to have forgotten the people that were on that show that seemingly cannot remember being on that show, and specifically one girl in particular who has been hidden away by her family since leaving the show. They decide to do a reunion for this childhood show, and things get very weird very quickly. If you have looked into Welcome Home, the ARG, which has puppets and that kind of thing, it feels similar to this. This book is incredible. I need to read it again, but it stressed me out, so here we are. Next we have Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling. This is a book that stressed me out. I read it as an advanced reader copy. My bad, I dropped something. I read it as an advanced reader copy, and I finished it, I think, in one sitting, and then immediately was like, everyone in the world needs to read this book. It's incredible. This book follows the scientist Dr. Tamsin Rivers. The world is, or the city is, like, sinking into this hole, and she does research into, like, what's going on with that. But then all of a sudden a door appears in her basement, and her basement suddenly is changing sizes. Right. So then her doppelganger walks through the door. She cannot get in or out of that door. Like, she can't open the door, but her doppelganger walks out of that door. And then chaos ensues, right? Just imagine that you have a basement and a door suddenly appears. First off, I would move, personally. I'd move. I would be like, I'm out. I don't need to live here. I'll be homeless before I live in this house. And then if my if I didn't move for some reason and my doppelganger walked out the door, I'd move. I'd be like, you know what, bestie? I don't need to be a part of whatever is happening here. So, next up we have another Caitlin Starling book, but this is the end of books that I physically own, so. Next up we have The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. This is about Geyer Price, who lied her way into an expedition to basically map mineral deposits in a cave diving situation. She expected that she'd get a surface team, a good suit and environment, and just the standard stuff. Instead, she got someone named M. M straight up will control Geyer's body with the suit that she's wearing. This is also set in the future, side note. This is set in the future, so there's some, like, technology that we don't already have, obviously. Things get really fucking weird as Geyer descends. This book is very claustrophobic. If you don't like caves or deep water or the idea of cave diving or the idea of being in a tight dark space where a scary monster is making scary noises and you can't see the scary monster, and also are you hallucinating the scary monster? I don't know, but you've seen several bodies as you know, go down this dive, then you might hate this book, but you might also love it. So yeah, that's the plot. There you go. Hope you enjoyed it. Next up, we have How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This book is about puppets. Bible school puppets. I've talked about it before, and somebody said the way that I talked about it felt like a spoiler, so I am not going to be spoiling it, I guess. But this book's about puppets, and Girly is trying to sell a haunted house that is a room full of puppets and dolls. No. Weird shit happens. It's very hard to sell a haunted house. Apparently, I've never tried, but according to this book it is. Grady Hendrix writes things that are they feel very tongue-in-cheek, and I do appreciate that quite a bit, actually. So that is the sort of, I would give that warning, is that I feel like Grady Hendrix's books are all very camp, and I wouldn't take them too seriously. This is the only one that legitimately had me stressed out. Like, I was stressed, and I don't know if that's because I was raised in a church where we had those Bible school puppets, and so I immediately knew what they were talking about, and I was like, I hate this, or if it's just because puppets as a whole are terrifying. Even doing nothing, puppets are terrifying, right? And dolls, people don't like dolls. I have American Girl dolls up on top of that bookshelf, so like, obviously I have no issue with dolls. I have issue with some dolls. So, whole thing is crazy. Really good book. I enjoy it. Don't want to spoil it. Not going to tell you any more about it. Next up, we have The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Now, this is a classic. It's like from 1892 or something, so it is an older book. And this is about postpartum psychosis. That could be considered a spoiler. I honestly don't know. It's a book from 1892, so I personally don't think that the spoiler thing matters. But it is a very short book. It's a snack of a book. I think it's like 80 pages or something. The audiobook was maybe 2 hours. It follows this woman who has been diagnosed by her physician doctor with a temporary nervous depression with slight hysterical tendency after giving birth to her child. She is essentially, they go to the summer home, so he's going to work, and she's not allowed to do any work at all. Instead, she has to stay in this room with yellow wallpaper and barred windows, and you're reading her private journal as she spirals, like completely spirals. And it is fucking horrifying. First off, I did not know that postpartum psychosis exists until this book. Second off, here, finding out that this book is semi-autobiographical, like The Bell Jar is for Sylvia Plath, fucking horrifying. That's horrifying. I hate that shit. And then also, it still haunts me to this day. I still am thinking about this book, despite everything else I've read. I made my book club read it. Like, I'm still thinking about this book. Next up, we have Mr. Beone by Clive Barker. And okay, let me be honest, this book is not very scary, but it's funny. And it's a horror book that made me laugh. So I think that it counts, and it's fucking hilarious. I will say Clive Barker writes things that are not politically correct. They are not considerate of others at all. And also, this is an older book, so let me preface with that. In this book, it is about Mr. Beone, the demon, named Jacobob Botch. And the whole time he's telling you, like, set this book on fire right now. Set it on fire, set it on fire, set it on fire, or I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill. There's one thing that's like, if you read one more word, I'm behind you. Each word you read, I take another step towards you. And it's just so funny to imagine this little demon trapped in a book trying to yell at you about reading the book and you just ignoring him. He's telling you his biography mostly so that you determine that he's so evil and bad that you should set the book on fire. Like, he's trying to convince you. I'm scary, bad, and mean, and you should set me on fire. And you don't. You just continue to read the book. And it's honestly hilarious. It does have some horror aspects, and there is some body horror. Clive Barker does body horror really well. He is the author of the books that the Hellraiser movies are based out of, so there you go. I really enjoyed this book, honestly. It's hilarious. Again, remember that it is an older book, and it is not written with people's identities in mind. So anything that is like used language-wise to describe people or situations or things, keep that in mind, right? Okay. Next up, and the last on this list, is The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. This was such a good book that I am still thinking about it, and Yeah, it's like very loosely Alice in Wonderland-y, but not, like more like Alice in Wonderland, that video game where she's actually in a psychiatric hospital, kind of like that. Silas attempts to escape an arranged marriage, does not identify with womanhood, and so is diagnosed with veil sickness and then shipped away to a sanatorium and finishing school. The facility is like cold, the instructors are merciless, and either you bloom into a beautiful wife or you disappear. That's basically your options. But ghosts of those disappeared people who did not become wives. Okay, great. Anyway, they start showing up and causing problems for everyone involved. So, God Spirit Bears Your Teeth. It is horrifying, there's body horror, but it's also horrifying in the treatment of the mentally ill, in the treatment of a trans individual. There's just so much about it that is horrifying that puts it on this list. Much like most of these books, please read the trigger warnings before reading them. I cannot emphasize that enough. Like, with all horror, please read the trigger warnings. Make sure it is within your well-being, like your brain is in the right place to read the book, because it may not be, and that's okay. That's totally okay. That's called taking care of yourself. You know, it's not called taking care of yourself, it's eating my plants. Anyway, that's the video. That's my top 10 horror books. This little nightmare is my personal horror. That's the video. Those are my top 10 horror books of all time. Again, this list could change by next year, so we'll see how that goes. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Let me know if you've read any of these books, or if you now want to read any of these books, or how you feel about these books, if you have read them, etc. Do you have any horror based on the ones that I've said I liked that you think I would like? I love a horror recommendation, so please let me know. Yeah, this is the video. That's the video. I hope you guys have a happy Halloween and you enjoy reading these spooky books. Don't forget to take your meds and drink your water and do something today to take care of yourselves. Okay, thanks, bye.